we're playing home now, it really feels like we're playing at home now, you know, where we have that strong Canadian support. That helps tremendously. That's our 12th man. To feel that as a player, to sense that as a fan or as an ex-player, and to know what that landscape was like and what it is now, it's unbelievable.
When did you first meet Paul Stalteri?
Wow. Me and Stolly, we go back probably 15 years old, provincial program. So he's like family. We were like the dynamic duo up top. You know, we were both fighting for the same spot. You know, he was a striker, I was a striker. Stolly was always a very fierce competitor. You know, a guy that always wanted to win, always loved competition. And that's the Stalteri I know.
Yeah, I played this season. I went to Clemson for a season, and it worked out great. I had a good season, but then it was an opportunity to join the Toronto Lynx. It was their first season in the A-League at the time, and it was great to be a part of. And it was, I had a great experience playing against other professionals. And then after that season, I had an opportunity to head over to Bremen. They'd offered me, for me to come over, have a look, see what I was all about, and was fortunate enough and lucky enough to sign a contract after the initial 10, 12 days that I was there. I knew how to play football, but really learning the game, it was there, and credit to the coaches there, and then being in the dressing room with other professionals that are, playing the game for 15, 20 years, had 300, 400, 500 games under their belts, and had played for the German national team and won the European Cup. So it was guys in that dressing room where you learn things off of every single day.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know Stolly was the first player to ever win the Bundesliga. You know, that's a lot to be said. He's went on from there and ended up, playing in the Premier League as well. He's had a storied career, a very successful career.
That's when I had met Michael personally at that time and got to know him much better. And he was a young player at the time, but much wiser than any other 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old that I come across in previous times.
Another person who I could not have more respect and admiration for. He was so good to me during our time together in Germany. Just such an example in terms of the professionalism, in terms of the way that he, trained, the way that he looked after himself. Obviously, just how good and reliable a player he was. When you talk about now what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to build here, you need as many good people in all areas as possible. I think it's crazy that Paul's been back in Toronto for 10 years, and it's taken 10 years to get him to TFC, but we were able to do it, and he's with us now, and he's going to help us in so many ways.
I first met Paul when he was playing with Michael at Borussia Mönchengladbach, and I knew that Paul was a competitor, a smart player. When I was the U.S. coach, he was playing for Canada, so I knew the role that he played in that team. Over the years, you have such respect for Paul. I mean, his professionalism, he's a family man, and I know that he's been involved in the game with some of the youth teams in Canada, most recently at York. And I really felt that his experience in the game as a player and a coach, but to go with it, his personality, his commitment to do things the right way would be fantastic in our staff. And then so far, just seeing him every day, listening to some of his comments, he's got a great eye for detail. He's a fantastic part of our staff.
Come on, no ball. Even the one where possibly you see when you thought you were actually getting it.
Yeah, that one you gotta go for sure. That one for sure you gotta just start going. But the one as soon as he wins that ball there, in this that's a perfect time to go because they're in trouble. You know what I mean? You've cut them off.
Was that my pass?
If you take another touch and play it, they get reset, and it's harder. Yeah, that one there.
Sometimes I just have to stay a bit farther back. Sometimes when he gets it, I'm already in line with the back line. So if I go,
yeah, but then you can run this way. Huh? Yeah? You can start taking off this way, along the line, a little bit, especially if he's on the inside. So if the ball's on the inside, yeah, especially if he's there, you can run to the inside and then go. If you run that way and you're offside, that's one thing. But if your distance is all right and he's on the inside of you, then you can start that run. So as he's coming, you play him into the space, Jack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the difference in the angle of your run you take. Yeah?
It's a young team in one sense. There's some older players with a lot of experience, which is good too. And then there's the other side where you got a lot of young players who are now coming into their own and featuring, with a lot of games and getting some experience. And then you got to get the team going as well with, that mix of players and adding that into the phrase. So that's a challenge, and that's going to be. The challenge throughout the season is to how can we improve ourselves on a daily basis in training? How can we improve ourselves week to week in the matches and get better and better? And that leads you into Bob, and he's, he lives the game, and you could see that right away from the first time I spoke to him. How much passion he's got for it and how much time he puts into it, how fine detail oriented he is, and how much he studies it and watches it. And it's been great to work under him. I've learned a lot, especially in the last 2-3 months with him, and it's just getting started, but hopefully that there's a lot more to go and a lot more to see and experience.
Paul, I got to work with a little bit in the national team when he was there for a bit as an assistant to Octavio, and that's where I really got to know him. And this is a very, very humble guy. You don't hear much of Paul Stalteri, which I think is a little bit of a mistake in Canada soccer, because this is a guy with a huge pedigree, and it's kind of missed between the public and the fans of Canadian soccer. This is a guy who's won the Bundesliga. This is a guy who's played in the Premier League at times where it was unheard of for Canadians to play at that level and do the things that he did. Now we have a lot of these young players getting these chances, and back then it was way harder to get those chances. So yeah, this is a guy with a lot of pedigree. He knows a lot. He knows the game. He's been there. He's done that. I think he's 3rd or 4th most caps in Canada soccer. So I think it's a great addition. It's great to have a guy like this in our club, and yeah, I'm excited to work with him.
First thing that comes to your head and what comes to mind when you hear 1986?
Oh, well, Canada qualifying for the World Cup. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I remember that day in Newfoundland. It was, I remember in our apartment we were celebrating. My dad, my brothers, soccer was big in our family, right? So for us, that meant everything.
Yeah, yesterday I was all over the place, to be honest. I was a few different places in the stadium, watching it from a few different spots, knowing a bunch of different people, having not seen them for a while. And then at the end of the game, I was down at the pitch. They brought a few of the older players down. So that was a great thing to see, and see the joy from the players and the fans and what it really meant to them. So fantastic, and just, a lot of pride to see what that team accomplished and what it accomplished for the country and what it meant to the fans.
It's hard to explain. It's a dream come true. It's a lot of emotion, a lot of years of sacrifice, blood, sweat, tears, and I'm just overwhelmed with joy to know that we've finally reached my dream. As a young kid, that's always been my dream, to help Canada to qualify for World Cup, and to see it with my own eyes, for me was one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, I worked with also only briefly for about a year with the men's team, and then that gap, 3-4 years now at least, where we haven't. And then you see him on a daily basis on how he works and how much he's dedicated to the game and his work rate in training and what he puts in off the pitch, and then you see what that means on the pitch and his performances. They speak for themselves. He's been great for us this season. He's been really, really good for the national team over the last number of years. For sure, scored some big goals for us, scored some big goals for them. He's a real important player for the team, and you see that every day. You see how much he enjoys playing the game, and you see his dedication, and you see his hard work and his commitment to not just the club, but you see it for the country as well. I've worked with probably every one of them almost at one level or not, whether it was the 15s, 17s, or 20s. You know, we were at one level we had crossed. A lot of them played with my under 17s, and again, a few of them with the 15s. So definitely know a lot of them. I know, having worked with them, and that's an advantage too, knowing these guys. And it's great to see them progress into the first team. And like you tell them every day, it's hard work. It's hard work to become a professional, not just to get there, but to maintain that level and to really put a foothold into it is the next challenge for all these guys. And if I can help them in any way, that's what I'm here for, to help them and keep coaching these guys and keep helping them become good, solid professionals.
Can you see any of the young Canadian players at TFC making that jump into the national team in the near future?
100%. There's lots of talent coming out of Toronto FC right now. And as I said, with this clinch of the World Cup, I could only see these kids' eyes open up, wide, and everybody's going to be doing what they can to get into that World Cup squad. I know if I was a young kid, I don't care, 15, 16, 17, and I was in any of these doors, I'd be doing whatever it takes. I wouldn't be sleeping. I'd be training to get into that team because it's a dream come true. And when you look down the road, 2026 is right there too. So no, we don't have to wait till 2026 to qualify for World Cup. We could do it on our own, and not only can we do it on our own, we could also kick ass doing it and leading the whole of CONCACAF in style.